If you want to learn about whales and whale photography, you're in the right place. It's a pleasure to welcome back Diana McPherson to talk about whale photography. How are you, Diana?
Oh, good. Kirby, how are you doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, how'd you get started in whale photography?
Um, I've just been fascinated with whales for as long as I can remember. And I know I started going out on whale watching tours, probably in high school. And then in my college studies, we would get to go out on occasion out in Monterey Bay to look for whales for various topics that we were focusing on for a particular class, and it just kind of grew from there. And I just love to do it, and I just want to always be out there as much as I can. And so it was just kind of, I want to photograph them. I want to share with everybody and just kind of try to help the whales as much as I can.
Well, that's a pretty nice introduction, I have to say. Monterey Bay is certainly a great place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So, my experience with whale watching trips, even in Monterey Bay, has been mostly disappointing, I guess. Either no whales were found or they were too far away to photograph. What's your secret for getting great whale photos?
Luck. Because yeah, that does happen when you do go out and you're hoping to find whales. It doesn't always happen. I know we had gone out on one excursion. I think it was one of the school trips, and we were out for a good part of the day. And the only thing we saw were two harbor porpoises, and they're so fast. It was just zoom, zoom, and that was it. And then we saw absolutely nothing else the whole day. And then the next day, the boat went out. I wasn't on that one, and I found out. So I don't know. I must have gone on Saturday. Maybe the next boat went on Sunday. And so then Monday in class, I find out that the next boat had all the activity. There was gray whale with the calf, and the orcas, the transient orcas had come across, and so it was the whole experience with that they got to see, and I didn't experience any of that. But for the most part, I would have to say about 90% of the time I've been very lucky in getting to see whales when I've gone out.
I guess part of the secret is knowing the whales' migration times and their migration patterns.
Absolutely need to know what areas to go to during migration. So like in Hawaii, you would want to go see the humpbacks out of Maui during the winter. So January, February would be a great time. And if you want to see them during the summer, then you got to go to Alaska.
Right.
So you just have to know kind of when. So winter months, you would want to go south. Blue whales would be down like San Diego. So they would be, let's see, so San Diego for the blue whales would be more summer and a little bit further north. Baja's a really good location for that as well. But yeah, if we know their migration and the times, the general times that they go through areas would be your best bet.
So are there websites or chats or someplace where you can go and get that information?
Yes. There are a lot of websites, and there are a lot of groups through Facebook and Instagram where people will post their updates, and I've been on several for the orcas over in the Salish Sea to kind of keep track of where people are seeing the orcas, and they're also seeing humpbacks and gray whales coming through. But people will report when and where they've seen them, and so that's just very helpful when I get a chance to go over there.
Sure.
So,
Well, maybe you could send me a couple of those places to look online, and I'll put those in the show notes.
oh, absolutely.
So one of the things you're always waiting for when whale watching is for the whales to breach, and that's always the most dramatic. Can you anticipate when this will happen?
I don't think so. Not really. I was lucky enough to have one who breached, which is one of the photos that we'll have coming up, and it just happened. And I don't know if it was because we think the whale was resting when the boat approached. And so I'm assuming we must have disturbed it a bit. And so it dove. We saw, its fluke came up, so it had dove down. And we just figured, okay, it's going to surface. And then all of a sudden, we leaped out of the water. But it had just done it that one time. And then he just kind of kept, surfacing and diving. And I'm pretty sure there's been a couple times where I've missed it because it happens so quickly. And then sometimes if you're just on the wrong part of the boat, like if I was like back at the stern and then the whale decides to breach off the bow,
Right.
you have that whole section of boat, your vision's completely blocked. So,
Or sometimes they're so close to the boat you can't get a photograph.
right, and then your
happened
blind lens is too long. Yeah, it's like, oh, I can't get anything. So yeah, that one is just kind of very lucky time to be there.
If you're really lucky, they'll breach multiple times in a row, and you kind of get a sense of the rhythm, and then you can anticipate a little bit. But otherwise, you got to be ready, and you got to have your camera set up and know where the controls are, because it doesn't last very long.
Oh, right. And you just don't know. It's like those couple that I've witnessed, it's just that one breach. But yeah, I've heard of other people where they get the multiple breaches. And so then you'll have a little bit more time to make adjustments with your camera. So.
Yeah. So you better have the shutter speed and the ISO and f-stop set, and if you have some idea where they're going to breach, then you want to focus on that general area so you're not messing around trying to get focus as they're breaching. So a few things you can do to anticipate, I guess.
Yeah. So when we've come across whales, we usually would start to kind of track their movement. So when you'll see them surfacing, and then you'll see them dive. So that's when their fluke comes out of the water,
right? And
they're diving down, and they'll stay down. Depends on the species. I'm just gonna do an average, like 5 to 7 minutes. It could totally vary to like maybe 3 minutes, maybe up to 12 minutes. It just depends on the species and just what they're doing and what they feel like doing under the water. But usually the captain and maybe a naturalist on board, they'll start timing, and so they'll start to keep track, but you can keep track of it yourself, of course. And then they'll surface. And then I would just, with the camera, I would just be kind of tracking that line of where you're anticipating them to be. So they've dove down and you're thinking, okay, they're going to go this way. And so I'm going to get that camera just up ahead. And I'd usually kind of go just a little bit ahead and then backtrack a little bit and then move a little bit ahead and then backtrack a little, just to try to stay a little bit ahead. of where you're hoping that they'll surface. And sometimes that works. And then sometimes the whale has a change of direction and they'll surface on the other side of the boat. When you're like, where are they? And they're just behind you.
Right.
So,
right. So with the humpback whales, getting a shot of the tail fluke as they dive is always kind of a neat shot too. So that's the other thing I look for anyway.
oh yeah, that's like the big, oh,
Yeah.
you know, they're there.
You get the water drops coming off the fluke, and yeah, that can be pretty cool.
Yep.
So for whale photography, gear matters quite a bit because the boats are only allowed to get so close. So what gear do you like to use and recommend?
Well, I use my lens is that the Tamron 150 to 600, and so that does have really good reach for when we have to stay back the required distance from the whales, and then it is also it's quite long and heavy. Well, for a lens, I would say anything beyond 200 would be ideal. That would help to get that distance. To help with on the boats, because obviously on a boat you're going to be moving around, even though if you have calm conditions, you're still moving a bit. I found that with that longer lens, I'll attach the Joby tripod, one with the flexible legs,
Right.
and I can still hold it, and I can adjust the legs so that it's sitting against, basically against my chest, but it's next to my body. And so that way the camera is then just moving with me rather than me trying to hold it, trying to keep it steady. It just takes out like one of those little elements of movement. And then I also found that you may not want to be zoomed out completely. Like I wouldn't want to be necessarily zoomed out to 600 all the time, because in part of their movement, and what happens if they do decide, instead of just surfacing, they do decide to breach. Then if I'm zoomed out all the way, I'm not going to get all of it. I'll get part of the whale, but I would likely be missing a lot of it because it'll be out of frame. So I'd try to pull back just a little bit. Just kind of have to see where their position is, and how your lens is. Just kind of adjust it and like anticipate. Try to anticipate what they might do and how you want your camera positioned.
Sure. Yeah, it certainly helps to have a zoom lens because sometimes they're very close and sometimes they're quite a ways away. So I certainly had the experience where I had a long lens on and all I got was a little bit of the dorsal fin as it went by. And so, helps to be flexible, I guess, huh?
Yeah. We had I went out to look for orcas one time, and when they were off in the distance, the long lens was fine. And then our boat had stopped, and then the orcas decided to come investigate, and they came really close to us, right next to the boat. No time to make any changes, and mine is like the minimum is the 150. Plus on a crop sensor actually makes it a little bit longer. So yeah, I got the same thing. It's just those, like the dorsal fin, I couldn't get out any further. And well, that was like super exciting, but then I was kind of bummed that I couldn't get more of the orca in there. So
yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting when they're close enough you can reach out and touch them, but it doesn't make for a very great photo.
Yeah, some of them actually look pretty cool, the way that it came up with just the fin through the water. So
yeah.
So we pull those up, but Yeah, and then on one of my last outings, I just used my Tamron 18 to 400 because we were out to look specifically for blue whales.
Oh,
And I knew the 600 was just going to be get too close, and I probably wouldn't zoom out that far anyway. So, and then knowing what happened with the orcas, not that the blues were going to come like that close to the boat, but just knowing like the sheer size of them, I wanted a little bit more wider option, and so that actually did help a lot with that one.
so as you mentioned, things are moving. The boat's moving, the whales are moving. So what shutter speed and f-stop work well, would you say?
I would say at least the 1/1600 and up. That would be like a minimum. F-stop, I usually put mine right about f8, just so I can make sure I get the whole animal.
Right.
Yeah, I think that kind of works better. It might go down just a little bit, but I usually just set it at f8. If it's really sunny, then I may set the ISO about 400 to 640. But I've been trying out the shutter speed priority more, and I think that'll just adjust on its own. The ISO will adjust on its own if you want to make sure that shutter speed is really fast. I think that's the most important part of it.
Oh.
Just to make sure that's really sharp, really fast, so that you get the photos.
You'd have to have auto ISO set up, though, I think, right?
Yeah, and that seems to work out fine. And if it is like an overcast day, which we had all of June when we went out a couple years ago looking for blue whales, it was just overcast the entire time. Yeah, it'll be obviously your ISO will be up higher, but that's just something that you can fix in editing if you need to take out noise. So that I stopped worrying about ISO. That's something I've had to teach myself too. Stop worrying about ISO. Yeah, that shutter speed.
Right. Yeah, we're kind of blessed to be able to let ISOs go a lot higher than we ever thought we would, especially with the new Topaz software. So, yeah.
Yeah, Topaz is good, and I'm actually using the On1 no noise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that one seems to work really well.
Okay.
So I use their editing, so I just have all that together.
Sure.
But yeah, that just works really well.
So, what are your favorite places for whale watching and orca watching?
Orcas for sure over here in the Salish Sea, around Washington and British Columbia, and California, San Diego, Channel Islands, and Monterey would be like the main locations. Oregon, Depot Bay is great for gray whales. They'll actually come really, really close to shore on their northern migration. And you almost don't even have to go out on a boat. You can just see them from shore. Alaska is awesome during the summer because they're all headed up different parts of Alaska. And I mentioned Hawaii for Maui for humpbacks during the winter. And then Canada, there's different locations, but we did Nova Scotia out on the very far tip of Cape Breton. We saw pilot whales and a minke, an A1 minke that just kind of snuck by.
Okay.
But mostly pilot whales.
Yeah, Glacier Bay in Alaska is a great place for whales. I've seen more there than anywhere else I've ever been, anyway. Oh, off of Homer. Alaska is a great spot for whale watching too, and photographing, as well as a lot of other things. So,
oh yeah, we went out of Seward,
okay, yeah,
but yeah, so it's kind of same general area. But yeah, there's a lot of locations around there too. I've not gone through the passage, the inside passage of Alaska yet. It's definitely on my list.
well, let's look at some of your photos. Everybody's been waiting for that. I'm going to share my screen.
So one thing on the photos, I did not put in the fluke photos, just because, I don't know, we get a lot of fluke photos. So I wanted to show different parts
Sure.
of the whales. So this one is the mom and her new calf blue whales off of San Diego. And so I did this one. There's one of the things too with being on a boat is obviously your movement, and you try to get them center frame, but obviously you're moving a little bit, and so it doesn't always happen. So yeah, they're off a little bit more than what I was hoping, but yeah, mom's in the back, and then the calf up in the front. And I did this one because it shows the calf exhaling right there. You can see the exhale.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, blue whales are so big and they don't really show their whole bodies when they come up like humpback whales do. So you're lucky to get what you got there, I think, huh?
Yeah. So I did get pictures of their dorsal and some flick photos. Those were really nice. So the dorsal photos, I had a couple that were really good side shots. And so I did send those in to get ID'd, because I really wanted this one to get ID'd so that if she's in the catalogs, then they'll know that she has a calf.
Okay.
With her. So I'm still waiting to hear. Everything got really kind of put on hold, because of COVID.
Sure.
So.
Oh, this is a very nice photo. I like the composition, and you got a little room in front for the whale to swim into. So can't have everything when it comes to blue whales in particular, I guess.
Oh yeah, and I've seen the drone footage too. So what we saw from the surface was teeny tiny piece of the whale.
Yeah,
it is amazing the size of them.
Yeah.
So
indeed.
Beautiful.
Okay. Not sure what this one is.
Oh, this is a gray whale.
Oh, okay.
And this is at Depot Bay. And this one was right up to the shoreline. So I am standing just up the rocky shore. And this one was coming in to feed right along the edge of the shoreline.
So what are all these growths that you see on there? Some of them are...
There's a lot of barnacles on there. And I think some of the coloration might be a little bit of sea lice.
Okay.
I think that's what gives them some of that coloration. Could be some of the barnacles, but also some sea lice. So.
Yeah. Got a nice photo of the below there as well. It's pretty cool.
But yeah, that's a great place to go. There are the boats that will go out as well. And I did the boats, and we just barely left the harbor entrance, and there was gray whale right there. So you almost don't even, I don't want to say don't go on the boats, but you can easily see them from shore in the winter, the summer months. So they do have, so once they've gone to San Ignacio down in Baja, and they're making their northern migration, most of them will still head up to Alaska, Bering Sea. And there's some who stop at Depot Bay, and they've become resident gray whales. They're at Depot Bay, and they'll stay there for the whole summer until it's time to travel south again.
So if I remember right, if I'm thinking of the right place, Depot Bay is where they have that harbor, small harbor also, isn't it?
Yes, I think they say it's like the smallest harbor.
Yeah, and sometimes I've been there when the whales actually come into the harbor, and boy,
Hmm.
they're really close.
Oh yeah.
So that's a neat place, and Depot Bay is kind of a neat place to visit as well. So it's
Hmm.
if you like whales, that's a good combination. It's kind of in the middle of the Oregon coast if you've never been there.
Yeah, it's just north of Newport. So Newport's, I guess, a little more central. It gives like a little bit of location, but yeah, a little bit north of Newport, maybe I want to say less than an hour, I think. But don't quote me on that.
Okay. All right. So what do we got here?
So that's a minke. That's one of my favorites, whales and photographs, because there's a huge story that goes with this one. I'll keep it brief. I was out sailing with friends of mine, and we went out to the Channel Islands. And so on our way back, we had this minke who joined our boat. He came up, and I remember my captain was like, kind of at first just saw something like a big black movement shape that he saw, and I just said, "Don't move course, just stay where you are." And so he stayed. And then next thing we know, there's this exhale, and the minke just comes up alongside the boat. And this minke stayed with us, surfacing on this one on starboard, and then would dive underneath and would go to port, and just back and forth underneath the boat and all the way across the shipping lanes. And once we were past that shipping lane, then he went on his way. She went on their way. But it was with, he was with us for, I don't even know the time. It went by so fast, but it seemed to like last forever, but then it went so fast. It must have been at least over an hour.
Wow.
To be with us, and just kept surfacing, and we'd surface, and like a couple times kind of turn on the side, so we make eye contact, and I'm up there, I'm just going back and forth, sliding it back and forth over the cabin underneath the boom, and just keep getting closer and closer, not to him, but just from the boat. And he'd turn sometimes a little bit, and we'd make eye contact, and it was just really amazing. And then also that I took this photo with one of those disposable cameras.
Well, they really were close.
My camera was out of film, so I created to date myself, I guess. But yeah, I'd run out of film the other stuff, and so that's what I had.
So these are the dorsal vents, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the blowholes. Yep, and then you see this little mouth right there. Yeah, you can't see his fin, but a lot of times they had a really good view of the fin. You can see that distinctive white marking across the pectoral fin.
So where are the eyes? I can't. Are they just not in focus?
Probably just under the water line.
Oh, okay. All right. Great shot. Let's see why you like it. Okay, these are orcas, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so this was, well, in the Salish Sea. I'm trying to remember, probably kind of close to Orcas Island. And I did this one just to show some of the natural behavior. So the one on the right is doing what they call spy hopping. So they just kind of poke their heads out, just kind of take a look around, maybe get oriented, see what landmarks are around. Or it might be a playful thing. we don't know for sure, but yeah. And then the one on the left is an older male. You can tell because the dorsal fin is much taller. The females will stay shorter and a little curved over. And the males, when they're younger, will have the same type of the fin size, the curved over. And then they'll grow taller. They'll get to about 6 feet on those dorsal fins. And I think about 12 to 15 is when they really start to mature and get those dorsal fins to grow to the mature height.
As I understand it, there's a lot of restrictions on how close you can get to orcas in particular because of concerns about their health and status, especially in Washington State.
Yes. So the southern residents, and these were, I believe, from JPOD. Not positive, but I think they might have been from JPOD. So the southern residents, yes, they need to stay. I think the requirement now is 300 feet, and it may have switched to 400, or not feet, sorry, yards. And it may have switched to 400.
Yeah, 400 is what I remember.
Yeah, and they have to stay behind or to the sides, and you do not get in front of them. And if you see them, if you're on one of the tour boats, then they'll usually just stop and watch the behavior. If you're on a personal vessel, then kind of like where they would roam. And now they're just kind of everywhere because they are looking so much for their food.
Right.
Yeah, and they're just not, like when I first started coming up to San Juan Islands I would go out to kayak and see the orcas, and it was usually kind of like an easy thing to do. We would go out, we knew that they'd be out Hero Strait, and we always were able to see the orcas out there. And now you can't go out there. I would go up in June. I would usually come up like right before the like the season would start, or when school was out, so it was so crowded. I would come up right before that, and now you come up in June and they're not around because the fish aren't there. They're elsewhere looking for a meal.
Yeah.
And and there's logs. I was out there in October, and Lime Kiln keeps track of all the sightings out there, so they're overlooking Hero Strait, and there's a record, there's a calendar, and there was no sightings all summer for the southern residents. So the transients, yes, the transients are more, have kind of almost become resident. They kind of found that they really like this area. And so the transients, the difference between those southern resident is that this is like their home area. This is pretty much where they stay. And then the transients are the ones that will travel more. And the transients are the ones that are the mammal eating orcas. So, and one other thing too with the orcas is that I think a lot of people sort of generalize or generally sort of categorize them in with the whales, but they're actually dolphins.
Right.
So
the largest dolphins, aren't they?
They're the largest of the dolphin family. Yeah. So, but because people say killer whales, I don't really like calling them that, but I prefer orca. Right. But I think just because of that naming, they assume that they're whales, with the gray whales and sperm whales, and it's like, no, they're dolphins. So,
Right.
okay.
So this is a tail fluke. I'm assuming it's a humpback, is it?
Nope, that's a gray.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's the gray whale. And I did this one in particular to show what researchers are looking for, how they're identifying the whales. And so let me backtrack just a little bit. So when they're doing whale research, so they use photo ID. That's one of the key research methods that they'll use is photo ID. So with some of the whales, they'll use the fluke, gray whales, and humpbacks. And I think on blues also, they'll use the fluke to as one of the identifying markers. And so you can see on this one, the shape, there's like a little nub on the far left. There's a couple of nicks on the far right of the fluke. And then there's some distinct markings, like the two spots on the upper left. And yeah, those right there. But, and then on gray whales, they'll also use the side, the dorsal. So gray whales don't have a dorsal fin like we usually see on humpbacks or, well, pretty much on everybody else. They have a ridge. So it's almost like they're like the spiny, kind of bumpy spinal column, basically, is their dorsal ridge. So there's no fin. But if you get a really good side shot of that, they have the distinct markings that they'll also use to match up the whales to identify them. And so if you get a photo, then they'll have a catalog. A whale watcher, if you're just out on a boat, you happen to get a really good shot of the side of the whale, and maybe get a really good shot of the underneath part of the fluke. You can send those into some of the research groups, and that just is really, really helpful for them to just get some extra data. It helps them to log out locations. Okay. And the dates and times. So then I did this one too, just to let people know that if they can get photographs of the fin on the orcas, you want to look for that saddle patch as well. So on the resident orcas, yeah, the white mark that's on the back is the saddle patch. And the residents typically have a more open spot. You can see it's that little marking in the middle. It's a little more open. The transients or bigs orcas, it's just more of a solid white marking. And a lot of times they may have marks on the fin or on the trailing edge, which is the back side of the fin. And those are, yep, right along there. And I can't really see any on that one. But those are just all identifying markers that they'll use. And then like on the next one, sorry, that one has, and I did that one, I just added that one in, sorry, because it does have a really distinct mark on the trailing edge of its fin. And so I think that is the other one's younger brother. So this is a male, and you can see how short its fin is. It almost looks like female's fin, but that's just because he's younger. And so when he reaches like 12, then his fin will start to grow, and then he'll get that really tall, distinctive male fin. And that notch will still stay there. Actually, his nickname is Notch. But that notch will still stay there. And those are just things that don't change. And so they're able to identify. But you don't have to be like super experienced at all this. If you can get like a really good photo and you can submit it, that's just really, really, really helpful for any of the orca or whale research. Oh, and then this is the breach that I have managed to photograph. And so this was the juvenile humpback who decided, this was in January, he decided that he was just going to stay here and not go south. He seemed to be happy where he was. So.
And where is this?
This is up in the Salish Sea. We were, I want to say, kind of closer towards Tacoma.
Okay.
When we saw this one. Yeah, usually yep, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for people that don't know, the Salish Sea is part of Puget Sound. Am I correct?
Yes. Yeah, Puget Sound is like a little part of the Salish Sea.
Oh,
so the Salish Sea kind of covers, I want to say, British Columbia down, all through that Pacific Northwest waterway, covering the San Juan Islands and around all the way down through Puget Sound, so Tacoma, Olympia.
Oh, okay, I had it backwards. Alrighty.
Oh, don't worry, I did that too for a bit. I thought Puget Sound was like the whole section.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Sound is the smallest part, and Salish Sea is the whole area.
Okay. All right. Anything else you want to tell us about this one?
It was really, really exciting, that's for sure. To see this one and other pictures that I had of this one that I was noticing after the fact that it had marks on its right by its fluke, so on on its very back side, and like kind of deep scrape marks. And so I don't know if it got really too close to a boat, or a boat got too close to it, or if it might have had a little bit of entanglement that got caught and dragged on it, to kind of scrape that off. Because it had a pretty big wound and a few long line marks, which would probably be from a propeller.
All right.
So, but otherwise it was healthy. So, but it did get close to something that shouldn't have happened. So, and one of the other things too, since actually we have a little the background here, when you're photographing from a boat, and of course you've got that movement. Another thing you're going to see on your photos afterwards is that your horizon is going to be kind of off kilter. There's not really much you can do while you're on a boat about that, but obviously just in editing, you can just adjust that. So, but yeah, I just wanted to point that out so no one was like, oh no, this is all crooked. So, but it's okay because you're on a moving vessel. So, and yeah.
Lightroom makes it pretty easy to correct that, so not a big
yeah. Yep. So this one was on a boat. I like to keep it to like the smaller boats. I've been on some of those that are really, really cram-packed with people, and it's just not a good experience. I think it's not a very good experience for the animals as well, because it's bigger boat, bigger engine, more noise. And I think that's just more disruptive to the animals. So I try to keep it on a smaller scale. Like the smaller boats, Zodiacs are like my favorite. And then sailing is an awesome experience. and then kayaking as well. And you can see, in a lot of areas, you can see whales from the shore. So like I said, in Depot Bay, there's a lot of areas even throughout Salish Sea that you can.
You mentioned sailboats. Are there sailboat cruises for whale watching like there are with the motorboats?
There are actually, yeah. I just did, back in October, I did a photo tour and we went out sailing out of San Juan Island. And yeah, we came across 2 humpback whales. And so it's just really nice because you're really quiet, and so you're not disturbing the animals while they're feeding.
And sailboats are generally smaller, or at least.
So there was only the 5 of us on board.
Yeah.
So it was really nice.
Yeah, I've been on those larger boats, and yeah, they get pretty crowded, and it's pretty hard to move around. So small boats would definitely be the way to go if you can manage that.
Yes, and I think there's a lot more of those available all throughout. I mean, when we did the blue whales out of San Diego, my daughter and I went on a Zodiac, and it was really nice. It seats 6 people, and I think we were the only ones on the boat, obviously except for the captain. And we were out, I think, like 13 miles offshore for the blue whales.
Wow, that's a long ways out in the Zodiac.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Okay.
Yeah, we did Channel Islands. I have a friend up in Oxnard who sails, and so he took us out sailing for the day, and we went out towards Anacapa Island, and that's where we saw actually my very, very first blue whale was seen out there on that trip. And that one was really nice because that whale was feeding. We actually got to see it by ourselves. We saw a few other boats. I think they were more private boats, but we saw them kind of circled around, and you could tell that they were waiting for something. They saw something, and so they were waiting for this whale to resurface. And so we kind of joined them, and then nothing happened. And so then they left, and we continued sailing. And honestly, as soon as we turned around, straight ahead, there was a blow, and there we were. We had that blue whale all to ourselves.
Cool.
And then we were really quiet too. And so this whale just kept feeding, and we could see it from the surface. And so we could see the throat cleats at the surface. And I just wish I'd had, I don't know, a drone, or if I had thought to, I don't know if I'd be allowed to, but possibly like stick the GoPro just in the water, just to get some visual from underneath the water surface, because you can only see so much at the surface. So
Right.
But yeah, and just imagine just the size of that mouth and just scooping up all of his food.
Yeah. If somebody wants to do some whale photography, what resources are out there to help them go to the right places at the right time?
There's a lot of information online. So I would probably just Google what species or what location they're interested in at a particular time of year, and they can find a lot of information on that on the web. I did look for books, and everything I found in relation to photography was everything I could find on whales was more documentary and just portrait style, but not any like instructional books in regards to that. But there are snippets throughout all over the internet. So other tips for whale photography.
I haven't looked at YouTube, but YouTube's usually a good source for anything like that.
Yeah, there were a lot of video clips that came up. So just really brief instructional videos. So
Okay.
maybe I'll do some of those too. I'll do my little Joby tripod
Okay. All right.
thing on there.
That'd be helpful. So, where can people find you in your whale photography? And you do some whale trips. So, talk about all that.
Sure. My website is friendsinnature.com. And I've got everything listed on there, doing some tours. I've got one coming up in August to Alaska. And I'm hoping we're going to be in Cordova. And so I'm hoping that we'll have some whale activity while we're out there. It's a mix of hiking and birding and some kayaking. But yeah, that one should be really good. And then, I plan to do some more out at San Juan Islands. That was a really fun trip.
Yeah, that's a great area.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks for sharing your experience and knowledge of whale photography, Diana. Always a great pleasure.
Yeah,
So, each episode of Photographing the West is published on the 15th and 30th of the month. Bye for now.